transistor called ultra thin body SOI because, first of all, SOI stands for the idea that the silicon transistors are built on an oxide. Ultra thin body refers to the fact that transistor body really has to be very thin. Now, we're not talking about just the fully depletion, partial depletion, if you happen to know that term. We're talking about making this body only 4 or 5 nanometers thick, about 15 silicon atoms thick. It's very, very thin, and that's what's needed. Now, before I tell you about these new transistors, let me just remind you a little bit what the transistor we have been using for 50 years look like, or 40 years look like. It's, of course, what we have been teaching our students all these years. It looks like the cartoon on the left. There's a source, there's a drain. Current flows between the source and drain. And very importantly, there's a third terminal called a gate. It's the gate, that gate voltage determines whether currents flow through this device or not. If otherwise, you would have a resistor. Because the third terminal, which determines whether current flows or not, we have a transistor. And I'd like to lead you a little deeper into this picture. The way the gate does this is that between the source and drain, there's a barrier. We call that potential barrier. It's like the gate of a reservoir, a dam. You lower this gate, then the water from one side, from the reservoir will flow out of the dam. If you raise this gate, that flow stops. And that's in fact why this is called a gate. It gates that flow. So what the gate voltage does is that lowers and raises this potential barrier, therefore allowing the current to flow, electrons to flow, or not allowing it to flow. Now, looking at a little more detail, we usually describe how effectively the gate does this by plotting the current versus the gate voltage. We like the transistor to look like this bottom curve, this red curve. It's a better design. That is, when the gate voltage is reduced, the current drops very rapidly. By the time gate is current voltage 0, we have very small leakage current left. We call that off-state current, I off. And that's what we really want. That is, the transistor changes from on to off with a very small change in voltage at the gate. But if you don't design the transistor well, we know that it can look like this other curves, the black curve, the blue curve, and in fact, the very badly designed transistor will look like the top curve. That is, it's really not a transistor anymore. Now, what the problem we're facing is that no matter how carefully we design the transistors, the best designed transistor is looking more and more like a very badly designed transistor when the transistor gets smaller. Smaller these days simply meaning putting the source drain closer together, make that gate smaller. When you make gate smaller, indeed the transistor have become in the last decade more like this black curve than blue curve. You probably have never seen this a transistor looks like the top curve, because when engineers saw that transistor, we just throw this into the wastebasket. We never write a paper about it. But that's exactly where the transistor headed if we keep making the transistors smaller and smaller. The best designed transistors are looking like what we used to call very badly designed transistor. And because of that reason, I-off is now getting to be bad. Not only that, the transistors, or I-off, is becoming very sensitive to size and dopant, meaning sensitive to the manufacturing variation. We call that CD, critical dimension variation. So not only the transistor is bad, we don't even know how bad it is, because every transistor looks a little different than its neighbors, than the transistor on another chip. That makes the design very difficult. Another reason that the device variation large is called the dopant variation. We put dopant into the semiconductor in different ways, but no matter how we do this, the actual number of the dopant in a small transistor is not the same from one to the other. The reason is that in very small transistor, there are only 20, 30, maybe even 10 dopant that determines its characteristic. Now, when you put 10 things on average into a billion bucket, the average you can control very well to be 10 each bucket. But because it's randomly distributed, you simply throw this atom by ion implantation into 10 billion buckets. Within each bucket, it could be 10 most likely, but some will have 9, some will have 11. They're not too bad, but those with 5 and 15 will have very different characteristics than what you really want. So that's the problem that's causing a lot of device variation. And the result is that we're using higher voltage and paying the price of higher power and using high design costs to deal with this. So Intel is the first company to decide the pain is big enough, let's do something to go away from this problem that the conventional transistor cannot help us solve anymore. So that's